I've dedicated a lot of my life to manufacturing, that, but I've learned so much within that. And that's the cool part about manufacturing operations, is you could have experts in purchasing, you could have experts in design, and everyone, if you get a team flowing with people that really know and really are dedicated to what they're doing, you can make some great products, man.
Welcome to Machine Shop Tech Talk, or welcome back to Machine Shop Tech Talk. If it is not your first time here, you know that we interview leaders from around the world that are making a difference in the companies that they run, and they're here to share their secrets with you. So in that note, today we're talking heat treating, whether you want to bring a captive operations within your own company, or you're looking for your next partner out in the heat treating world. My guest today, Danny, runs Northern Heat Treat. He's their operations manager. He's been on the shop floor since he was 14 years old, and he's got some stories to tell, so we're gonna dig into it.
Sure,
Danny,
man.
dude, I am so glad that we're here. I know we had to pause because
Yeah.
we were having this great
Yeah, no
conversation,
worries,
and I'm like,
man.
dude, we got to hit record. We got to capture this
100%.
conversation because I did not do a lot of heat treating in my career. But I had to find the people to trust. So there's a lot of shit you got to start to think about.
Man.
And you're the expert, so you're gonna walk us through
Yeah,
this.
sure.
So when it comes to heat treating, maybe actually let's hear a little bit, because you've been at this company since you were 14, dude. So maybe share a little bit about how you've worked through the company, like 1,000-foot view, and then we'll dig into the tips for those people that are really looking at leveling up their heat treating partners or bringing it
absolutely
in-house.
And Arthur, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor, man.
Oh, for sure, dude.
A complete honor. So I've been on all levels of the in and out of a heat treat operation. I was, from everything from sweeping shop floors when I was young to I was a press operator for 5 to 6 years. And that's not an easy job, and I have a lot of respect for the guys that do it day in and day out, just because I've done it, which is important. And then I went to university. A young guy, kind of weighing all my options, seeing what I want to do with the rest of my life. It's not easy, right? But hey, I always felt at home in a manufacturing shop. So that was always in the back of my mind. But of course, when I was 18, 19, I was like, originally I wanted to get into accounting, and I thought, being a CPA, I could bring that back to my family's heat treating operation, have a pretty good impact, right? I'm a numbers guy. I love that kind of stuff. And I tried that, and I was just like, you know what, man, it's just not, I like it. Like, I love numbers, but it's not pushing me farther every day, right? So I kind of rerouted, and I have, I think, 1 year left on my bachelor's degree, and I will finish that, just to do it for myself. But at the same time, I rerouted. I came back to town. I talked to my father at the time, and I said, hey man, how can I be a bigger part of this? You know what I mean? And he's always stressed, to really help and collaborate with people well, knowing your equipment, knowing that the parts that go into all the processes, and doing it firsthand will serve you greatly in the future. So I've kind of always run off that. It's like, it took me 15 years, but I'm under 30, and I you know what, I know a lot about something that and maybe a lot of people, other people don't, and that's fine. But so anyways, I digress. But I returned back, and I started getting into shipping and receiving. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist in the way that I think. So it was always like, okay, so like this, let me get used to how we're doing things now, and then let's keep in the back of our mind how I could help improve what we're doing now. That's kind of where I made my mark. I started, I think it was 2018 to about 2021. I started working with one of the biggest steel mills in the world. And that, they call a lot of the shots, and that's the way it should be. At the same time, I'm serving them. So I kind of made it a little bit of a name for
Yeah.
myself. Even just with it, I took care of a lot of inventory, production, quality, all for them. I just I kind of got thrown right into one of the biggest accounts you could, and I learned a lot
Wow.
from some really great people too. At the same time, so um, I'd say, I did that for about 2, 3 years. And then I started really stepping in to the science, right? I love
Mm,
numbers. I have a general grasp of the science, but you could always dive deeper, right? So
yeah.
like just to connect even the dots for myself personally on exactly what's happening microstructurally or atomically even, like to the steel, and understanding and wrapping your head around the variables of control that go with it.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. I'm super passionate about it, man. Like, and it's funny, you told me this 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, I'm a press operator. I don't know if this is my future, man. But you know what? Learning the hard stuff does go a long way. Does go a long way.
Yeah.
And now I've really stepped into a role as an operations manager. I've been able to connect a lot of dots between the science, production, cost, and that's given me a really really big advantage to providing people with some amazing collaborations on some great products.
Yeah, well, and I love your journey because you went back to school for the CPA, but you're like, look, I love numbers, but these are not the numbers I want to
Exactly,
handle all my
exactly.
life.
And
And but then you found a way to find that
yeah,
passion, right?
absolutely.
To I mean, we're talking heat treats, but you're stirring your own like personal fire about like what's going to drive you, what's going to
Yeah,
keep you
yeah,
motivated, what's going to keep you hungry. And now you've gone all of this time into the company now to modern day where you're operations manager and you're able to bring this to the
yeah.
people out there. So when you're talking about being that value, what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, if I'm twisting it, let me know, but you're learning how to be that value added partner for people that need their heat treat. Or in the
Yeah.
case of the large mill, where you're working hand in hand with them to deliver what their customers need. So you've worked at a very high level of
Yeah.
partnership with some very big
Yeah, and
companies.
like honestly,
So
like uh it's been an absolute privilege. I've worked with some of the smartest engineers you'll ever meet, some of the most talented machinists, like, and I started to realize that at a young age that, what, my opportunity to work with some of the greatest people that know their craft in and out will even just push
mm,
me farther personally, you know? So like that was kind of the turning point for
mm,
me, like it was like I could probably keep going with this CPA, get maybe make some good money, I guarantee it, right? But at the same
oh yeah.
time, I don't know. It just getting up every day to do accounting, man, didn't seem as glorious anymore after you get into it for me. Not to say some people love
No,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Not dissing, but
No, I'm also on that team. For the record, do not ask me to handle your books. My books are a mess. I've hired someone to
yeah,
fix
yeah.
them.
Hey,
Uh,
and that's yeah.
I am not the man for that. Those are not the numbers that
Right,
excite me
right.
either, my friend.
Yeah, but no, it's been like you said, man, it's
Oh,
been it's been a crazy ride so far. And as I'm learning, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to talk about it, but I'm gonna be 30 this year. I'll say it once
yeah.
because I don't like
look,
thinking
look,
about it, but
look. Yeah, yeah. And I feel that when I was approaching my 30s, I had the similar feels. But for the record, I just hit 42 and it didn't get any
okay, good.
worse. I
Awesome.
promise.
Yeah, no, man, but like I don't know. It's funny because like I feel like I might be like rambling a little bit here, but like I just I don't know. I found myself in a really unique opportunity, right? I've been since I
Mhm.
was, a very young age, I had the privilege of, taking a weekend and spending it with an induction scanner. I don't know many people
Yeah,
that have that opportunity, and just picking it apart, taking some scrap stuff,
yeah,
figuring out what works, figuring out what doesn't, picking up the little tricks. It's and that right there, I found the opportunity in that, and I say, you know what, I could really really be of value to some people in some great
yeah.
collaboration, and beyond that, I think um I think the main point of what I've learned is to stick in your wheelhouse, you know? You could push
Yeah.
boundaries of innovation in anything. But you know what? My family is built off, I want to say 8 to 10 core processes we do, right? And they have
Mhm.
variations of them all, right? But you know, like when if you were to ask me something about, let's say, vacuum, we don't really do a ton of vacuum. We used to have vacuum. We
Okay.
got out of it regionally. There wasn't the, and it's expensive, right? So you gotta be in the industry to know, and it's not our expertise. So like, I someone approaches me with vacuum, I'm gonna be like, hey, I know these guys down south, I know these
Yeah.
guys out of the states, or whatever, right? And I say, you
Yeah.
know what,
Yeah. Make the right
make the right
connection.
connection, because like I've seen a lot of people try and force a fit that isn't there. That's where issues come up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, for sure. And I love, because I want to dig into your
Sure.
specialty there. But I mean, honestly, man, if it's a quick answer, I don't even know why you would need vacuum and heat
Mhm.
treat. Like, why would you even need
Well,
that? Who would need
like
that?
my opinion is like, I see like a lot of aerospace, the variables of control are tight, right? So like, I will be the first to say, I think if you're looking for finished machine tolerances,
Yeah.
you have the ability with a vacuum to put as much control as that as you can, even with heat up times and then quench times.
Oh,
A gas quench, you're gonna find you
yeah.
could control that so much that you could get that cooling rate perfectly, right? But at the same time, it's
Okay.
it's very expensive, right? And the people that really know how to do it, they know how to do it. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Okay.
that's not really been my wheelhouse particularly, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you know, I think people run into the most problems when they try and force a fit that isn't there.
Oh,
You know,
100%, dude. 100%. Well, and it makes sense that you would focus on where your strengths
yeah,
are and where you can best support the people, right? You don't want to be able to do everything in the
well,
heat
no,
treating world. You want to focus on your 8
that's
core
the thing, right?
offerings and be an expert
Yeah,
in
yeah,
those, which is still a lot of things to be
yeah,
an expert
absolutely.
in. Um
But at the same time, like
so
I've seen
yeah.
even like much bigger heat treat operations than what we're dealing with. You know, they try to go everywhere. They try it. They really do. And then, you know, you do know someone that's ran a batch IQ for 20 years, but if you know, if you're asking them about vacuum, I honestly don't think you're going to get a very good answer. You know, so
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
because like the knowledge is so niche, especially with, I'm going to say like the last 10 years, I've really seen like products push, and that's the way it should be, right? So the process
Mhm.
gets more specific. They're pushing to make their products a better product. Um,
Yeah.
so in any way I could help do that, that's where I'm trying to bring my value in, you know, and at the same time,
Yeah.
um, you know, a little family thing, but we have never ever and never will. We'll never have machining offerings of any kind.
Yeah.
And that's just the trust you got to have, man. Like, manufacturing is still a business, right? So, you know, and I
Yeah.
understand people cost everything. There's so much out of our control, but at the same time, I think, you know, you're risking a lot when you're sending your heat treat to someone with a machine shop on site. And I've seen it a lot, man. I've
Mm.
seen it a lot. And it's
Yeah, I've
it's
seen
it's
where
it's ugly
people
a bit.
with less moral, they have less morals than
Mhm.
perhaps you and I do.
Yeah.
And
And man, like, and
yeah.
that's the thing though, over the last 10 years I've seen that happen, and you know what, it catches up with you cuz people hear about that.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what? They don't want to deal with you if that's how you know what? Integrity goes so much farther
Yeah.
in your business operations than maybe cutting
Oh
other
dude,
people's
yeah.
costs will. You know?
Well, exactly. It's very
Mhm.
short-sighted to do
Mhm.
that because if you start ripping off
Well, that's the
work,
thing.
eventually you just stop getting heat treat work and now you have nothing for
Yeah.
your business except for maybe 2 3
Well, and that's the
customers.
thing.
Then all your eggs are in one
Mhm.
basket and you're upside down and you got to close the
And that's the
company
thing, right?
because
So,
they found somewhere
yeah,
else.
and that's I don't know. So that's something I hold close. Like,
Yeah. Mm.
I'm either collaborating, but I'm not competing with
Yeah.
my customers ever. That's just, I think that's
Yeah.
unfair. And
No, and
beyond that,
yeah.
I'm not a machinist. None of my family is a machinist. We know as much as we need to know to be able to provide like a good
Yeah.
service, but beyond that, man, it's like when you look at what you do as an art, you recognize that when other people do what they do, it's also an art, right?
Mhm.
It's just about that
Exactly.
mutual
We have that
respect.
mutual respect.
Exactly,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. We said it at
Right?
the same time. Perfect. But that's that's the thing. By not having the shop there, it means you can build that trust
Yeah.
maybe a little bit quicker
Mhm.
too. And they know, look, he's not taking the
No.
work anywhere. He just wants to be the best heat treat
And that's the
partner.
thing, right?
So let's look at that
Sure.
conversation, right? Let's look at that. Now, again, people that want to bring they want to make like an
Mhm.
in-house
Mhm.
operations, they could listen to this and learn to. But let's focus on the conversation you have with new machine shops that are looking for a new heat treat partner, and let's go through that. Let's pretend I'm that new shop, and so I'm talking to you, Mr.
Mhm.
Danny Sidun.
Right.
Or actually, at the company, would I talk to someone else, or would it be you that normally talks to people?
I wear a lot of hats, but yeah, it's probably nowadays I love
Okay,
to be I want to talk and figure out the
perfect.
collaboration myself. So,
Cool. So what would be your first question? We've had an intro maybe from
mhm.
someone. What would you want to what would you need to know
What
first?
I would need to know, first of all, we got to establish if the fit's there, right? So,
Yeah.
what's your part for? I don't even need to know how you make it. I don't even want to know at the same point, unless it's going
Yeah.
to help me.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
what do you need from the heat treating process? And
Hmm.
so the first step always for me is establishing a fit. If there's not a fit,
Yeah.
I could I could tell you where to go. Maybe I can't because some to be
Hmm.
honest, some things, some heat treat specs are made for someone that was building a product at high volume, and then
Hmm.
so they were able to put, say, an OEM, right? They're gonna put in, say it's induction, they want an induction heart in a specific area of a shaft. They're gonna put in the
Yeah.
exact equipment to do that. But if you once you start spreading out to commercial heat treaters, that's not, unless it's a basic geometrical shape, you're going to need some custom tooling.
Right.
You're going to, so you got, that's the next thing I get into is
Okay.
how are we going to do it, right? If we're a good fit,
Okay.
there's 100, okay,
But
sorry.
so sorry.
Mhm.
So let's stop there though. What makes a good fit? Like
Right.
what questions would you ask me to determine if I was a good
Gotcha.
fit?
So I would, like most of the time I will run through, what we offer. Um,
Yeah.
and even not even necessarily who we do work for, but the industries. A lot of things vary from
Yeah.
industry. Uh, so what I'm looking for when is, okay, so what do you need? If it's something I could do, let's try it.
Hmm.
If it's something I'm not confident in doing and trying to force a fit, we'll figure it out, but I can't help you. And being honest about that, great first step.
Yeah.
Sec-
Oh,
right.
100%, dude. Yeah.
So establishing that fit, so
Yeah.
it's like it's more about, I would say, the process they want itself. And if they don't know the
Yeah.
process, I'll connect the dots on how to get the results, right? Um
Yeah.
because
So
sorry.
so let
Mhm.
me ask then. No worries. So then if I already had, it'd be different if like I'm bringing a new product to
Right.
market, or I've already got a steel
Mhm.
coffee cup that I've been making for 10 years and I'm just looking for a new
Mhm.
vendor because maybe there's some crazy
Yeah.
tariffs from another
Mm.
country and I've got to source
Right?
locally.
Maybe.
Maybe. So it would be, so I guess it would be depend then if the people out there, if they're looking for that new
Mhm.
partner, is it an established process or do they need to start from scratch and be like, look, this is what we're making. How can we get the hardness our customer needs
And
or
you know what?
whatever? Like it would be a different.
That's probably the approach,
Hmm.
is say, here's
Okay.
the results I'm looking for. Can you achieve that?
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
the some of the, and you know what? And I'm sure you've seen it, Arthur, like some I
Yeah.
get specifications from 1910. I get
Yep.
drawings
Yep.
from 1920, and they're talking about using 1920s technology that I could produce a better product with what I have now. But if we're trying to fit that exact process, you're gonna have a lot of trouble finding that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So being super
mhm,
clear, I guess, when they come to you or to another shop, they need to be super clear on the outcome they're
what they're
looking
trying to
for,
achieve
or
exactly. Mhm.
yeah, or be clear that they don't know
Yeah,
exactly. Like if they brought in prints from
yeah.
1910 or whenever, like these archaic
Mhm.
prints, and they said, "Hey, like, can you help us figure out the modern equivalent?" Is that something you could
Yeah,
bring to the
absolutely,
table?
and, like, because,
Okay.
like, I know you know, even many machinists know there's about a million different ways to get the same result, right? And
Yeah.
that's just part of it, right? But at it's, so I think having the discussion and not being bound to those old specifications that, you know what, you could achieve probably, better things with better technology than what's called for,
Yeah.
right? And that's a lot of things have changed at the same time they haven't. You're still you put something in the
Yeah.
furnace for how many hours at a carburizing temperature, you're gonna get that amount of case depth, right? There's certain core scientific things that do not change, but the delivery of the heat.
Yeah.
How long is it gonna take? How much volume? All these things have to be taken. So I think being a little transparent with what you're trying to achieve and then going from there really and not being bound
Yeah.
necessarily to that specification, I find a lot of people have a lot more success.
Yeah, well, and for my machining friends that are listening
Mhm.
or watching right now, because you could listen or watch right now, but it's like on the machining side. Look, if you're told you just need to add a through hole clearance for a
Mhm.
bolt, you know that it doesn't. You've got a whole range of parameters you
Yeah,
can work with. But if the engineer says that hole needs to be plus minus five
yeah,
tenths, you're going to have some choice
exactly.
words for that engineer, and it's going to take way
Yeah.
longer. So it sounds like on the heat treat side, as long as we're clear to
Mhm.
you, like to the partners that we're going to talk to, on okay, this is the outcome we need to
Yeah.
generate, then a partner like yourself, like I love the way you're handling this
Mhm.
conversation. For anyone listening, look, if you go to talk to someone that's not Danny and they don't handle the questions the way that he is right now, that's a warning sign. That's
Well,
a
yeah,
red
and
flag.
that's
You should you should probably talk to someone
yeah,
else.
well, yeah, and
So
that's the thing, right? You get it's there's so many people
yeah.
specialize in so many things and honestly an outlook of the commercial heat treating business as a whole, a lot of huge
Yeah.
really reliable operations have and not even closed down necessarily because of financial reasons. A lot of it is family run businesses that,
Mm,
you know what, I've seen three big ones in, let's say, you know, or northern states, southern Ontario, Canada, you know,
yeah.
across beyond the fact that the times right now are just like chaotic, right? But what can you say? I don't have
Yeah.
another word for it. It's
Especially you guys over in the auto belt
yeah,
region, man.
dude.
It's extra
Oh yeah,
chaotic right
and
now.
it's yeah, it's like well, you just got to roll with it, man, and but also don't like limit yourself to what industry you could provide help
Mm,
to, because there's like I said, there's a million different ways to get the same result. And sometimes
mm,
I think people pigeonhole themselves a bit by saying like, "Hey, like we need this exact specific thing done
yeah.
to it," which is fine, but I get it. But at the same time, I think, especially with the scarcity of commercial heat treaters nowadays, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
um, you got to be willing to, especially when we have to try and make our processes like more generic to serve, you know, 500 different customers with, you know, say, you know, 3 or 4 batch IQs. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's if you don't have that high volume, you're gonna have to expect some adjustments anyways, unless, and I've seen a lot of good
Huh.
specifications. We follow
Yeah.
specifications, but if they're the less specific in terms of delivery they are, the easier
Yeah.
you're gonna find someone that'll be able to do it for you.
Yeah. Well, So, when it comes to all of that, then is there any warning signs that you've seen in the industry? Like maybe you're dealing with a heat treater that not going to give you your results. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's appropriate to
Yeah,
ask,
no,
but
well, and I'm gonna not throw anybody under the bus because I know.
no, no,
No,
please
no,
don't. Yeah, no,
but at the
please
same
don't.
time, I mean, I think you see it everywhere, right? There's, I've seen even machine shops, any manufacturing really. There's a separation. There's people that have invested their way and marketed their way to where they need to be, and then there's people
Mhm.
that have made some that have done some stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
and that sounds really rude, but you can only fake it for so long, man. If you don't have the dedication to continuing learning,
Mhm.
I don't see what how you're providing the value you should be as a additive
Yeah.
manufacturer. People expect you to know your
Yeah.
processes inside and out, and I expect myself to. And if I don't know, that's on my list to learn. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and I love your approach that you bring there, right? But so I guess one of the things would be they like what would be a warning
Okay.
sign then? I don't know if you've
Yeah.
got
So
any
like,
there.
I think es- try and establish a level of trust right away. Like I said, big warning signs
Okay.
to me are people that have either are part of a bigger entity that has machine
Yeah.
shops, manufacturing, fab shops. Um, you're gonna get, and not to say there's not people that really know what they're doing in that position. I know that.
No, no.
I've seen it, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it makes it a little harder to trust. So I'd say, you know what, if you really want to partner with people that have been doing this for a long time or learning the ins and outs of the control variables, find someone that's doing it.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. That's that's like the
Okay.
biggest thing for me, man.
That's the
That's
number one on your
because, like,
list. Yeah.
you've been in manufacturing. Like I said, it's a business.
Yeah.
There's always people trying to save money. There's always people saying, "Hey, we could do this ourselves. Looks good on paper." And hey, sometimes it does, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, establishing that trust right away is very important. You know, and whether and that's why I have no, like, within reason, I have no trouble signing an NDA just to have a conversation. Like, that's important.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, I'm
important
the
to
same
me.
way.
That's
100%.
important to, I know it's important to people and their products that have put so much work into designing a new or making a better product. I think that's the big
Yeah.
thing, man, is like, I find when you have someone with their hands in a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
how can you even rationalize the fact that they're putting all that needs to be in that process, you know? It's kind of like jack of all trades,
Yeah.
master of none,
That's
you
fair.
know?
Yeah.
And
Which where you're at with Northern Heat Treat is you've like you said, no inside other
mhm,
services. You focus on your 8 offerings on Heat Treat. You won't even mess with the
no,
vacuum side because there's not enough work
no,
there for you to even worry about bringing that in house. You focus on your core competencies
mhm,
and
yeah,
that's it. And you're really super clear about it. Which again, that's a great testament, and it sounds like that's the business decisions as a
mhm,
family that allowed you all to continue to grow and be
yeah,
successful. Whereas, like you pointed to, there's other shops that aren't quite so
no, and
successful, and it's not being carried on by the
no,
family,
and some
and
exactly,
they're shutting their
yeah,
doors.
exactly, and it's like even some I've seen some of the most successful heat treats in the last couple of years, they close the doors because they don't have a
Yeah,
plan of like young kids or anybody in the family that wants to continue it. And like I
yeah.
think that the dedication manufacturing takes to do it right, you need to have people that are full in on it, man, and that's the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and look, I'm not throwing anyone under the
Mhm.
bus with this statement,
Absolutely.
but I feel like it needs to
Sure.
be said. Is my personal belief, and I could be dead wrong, so
Oh, no,
don't kill me in the
no.
fucking
No.
comments, people. But it's if there's a family run business and no one in the family wants to take it
Mhm.
on, I feel like that's a sign that it's not the best business to
Yeah.
run. Now, look, maybe that person had no
Mhm.
kids,
Yeah,
right?
and there's
Like, look,
situations
maybe
like
they were
that,
so
right?
committed,
Mhm.
maybe, but I've met people that have run good companies. I'm not
Mhm.
shitting on
No,
these
no.
companies where they've had 4 kids and all 4 kids want nothing to do with it. And you talk to the kids, and it's because of how much of the life of their parents it
Yeah, man,
consumed.
and oh,
And it was like 80, 100, 120 hours,
mhm.
like literally every waking moment. And the kids ran from it. They're like, I don't want to be that
Yeah.
guy.
No, and
It-
that's personal choice. You know,
yeah.
people kind of vary in that way everywhere. But at the same
Oh, yeah.
time,
Not,
you're
again,
absolutely right, man, because like if no one is seeing the light in continuing that operation, there's a good chance. I don't know, man. I don't want to same as you, but there's a good
no,
chance,
no.
man,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like maybe maybe it's just not what they want. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it hasn't been shown to them in a way that it could be something that they want, and that's the thing.
It, that's
Hmm. Hmm.
exactly it, right? Again, I know we're kind of
Oh,
derailed from where
that's
we
all
were
right,
gonna
dude.
be, but dude, I I just felt like it
Yeah,
needed to be
man.
said in this
Yeah, it's
conversation because it was appropriate. But so when it comes to
mhm.
heat treat, I think we've got a really good framework. I really appreciate you laying
Yeah.
it out like
Hmm.
that. Like
I just
it, and you're not saying you can't hire
oh
people that
no,
also have
man.
other operations, but understand that there's a good chance you're going to get a
Hmm.
substandard service in any one
Yeah,
area because they've got 12 envelopes they
and that's the
operate
thing,
under.
and that's just a reality, and I don't think that's anybody's fault, and
Yeah.
some people are really successful with that, and and the problem and why I see it happen so much nowadays is because the big
Hmm.
manufacturers come to me. I've had it happen. Let's say I have had 10 of them come to me just
Yeah.
beyond circumstance in the last 12 months and say, okay, we
Yeah.
have we got 10,000 pieces a week we want to do. We got a machining operation at the end. Can you guys just machine them and finish them off? And I'm like, nope. Of course they, of course they wanna
Yeah.
put as many operations as they can because it's more cost effective. And I
Yeah.
understand that for some products, there's no way around that, right? Especially really
Oh, no.
competitive
Yeah.
products. But at the same time, it's like I've gotten around it because I've been like, you know what? We have 3 or 4 really good machining operations right adjacent to us, even, and I could link
Hmm.
you up to do that, to do the finishing machining after we do this heat treat, and you could create like a, a well coordinated little
Yeah.
supply
Like
chain,
supply chain.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
but I'll say that every time because it's like I'd be shooting myself in the foot if I start doing machining. That's not who
Yeah.
we are.
Well, and you want to focus
Yeah.
on that. I mean, and it goes outside of just not wanting to add that
Hmm.
risk. It allows you to focus so that the whole company, your purchasers,
Yeah.
everyone is all focused towards heat
That's the thing,
treating.
right?
They don't you want an accountant or a bookkeeper, no offense to any of
No.
those people, but you want them to learn about multiple different verticals within
Mhm.
manufacturing when they have a hard enough time grasping one
Uh,
completely.
uh,
Like, you've got to think about all of the supportive
oh yeah,
roles
and it takes a village,
that
man.
all
It
have to
it takes a
learn.
village, and to
Yeah.
have
Oh,
like to
100%,
have a
dude.
great operation, you don't need 10 experts in heat treat, but you know what? It don't hurt
Yeah.
to have an expert in purchasing, an expert in this.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We about a year ago, we when we moved into a new facility, we moved in 2018, just like a big
Yeah.
facility. It had but one of the parts of it, it has a paint booth that they used to paint. It has rails coming right off CN's line. They
Yeah.
bring locomotives in there.
Oh,
It's a
nice.
massive paint booth, right?
Yeah.
And so it was
Yeah.
like, well, immediately, some people were like, "Hey, why don't you guys start doing?" And we do use it, but it's an
Yeah.
additive service for our heat treat customers only, and that's where it's at, right?
Oh, yeah. Don't do it
No,
separate.
no,
No
and we were
way. Yeah.
super lucky. We really lucked out. It was a long search because I wanted to make sure that if we were doing like coating, like not even coatings, just like general painting, that I have someone that
Yeah.
knows it way more than me and that could
Yeah.
take on the questions because I want to focus on heat treat. That's like my bread and butter. I'm not a painter. I'm not a machinist. I'm a heat treater. And
Yeah.
it's like a big distinction. So we lucked out. We got one of like regionally one of the smartest, most experienced painters. I his work
Yeah.
blows me away, but at the same time, it's like we're
Yeah.
not chasing we're not going to be chasing like those big paint contracts and stuff. It's like we did this to just and it's only for my heat treat customers. If you don't do heat treat, I'm not going to paint
Yeah.
stuff for you because it's all we want to offer is to continue the collaborations and make new collaborations with what
Yeah.
we do best, right?
Yeah. And like you said, you're willing to work with other machine
Yeah.
shops and be like, hey, I will heat treat and I will ship directly to a machine shop of your choosing, so
Mhm.
you can still receive a finished good at the end
Yeah.
of it. I just like how clear you are on
Yeah.
that, because some companies aren't, right? The leadership is going all over the place. Whereas at Northern Heat Treat, you seem to be very
Yeah.
focused. This is our
Mhm.
excellence. This is what we offer. If you want this, 100%, let's
Yeah.
find a way to work together. If we're a good fit,
Exactly.
we're in the right industries, you want the right processes. But otherwise, like, don't expect us to buy CNC
No.
machines to start machining
No,
your
and that's
parts.
the thing, right?
Don't expect us to do all this
No.
other stuff.
No, because
Like,
you start ruffling
yeah,
feathers, and it's really unfair to your
yeah,
customers that I know personally, like I don't have my family doesn't have 40, 50 years in CNC machining, you know? And that's
yeah,
just that I think I would be offering a not a very valuable service, regardless of how easy or how
yeah,
little the machining is. I don't I don't want to
yeah.
focus on that.
No, and there's always ways to improve
Yeah.
cost. And again, if you're focused on too many
Mhm.
areas, then maybe you're going to miss some refinements on the heat treat side that would have benefited you way more
Well,
overall, and would have benefited your customers way more because of the level that you're able to invest in
mhm.
it, the depths that you can get
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
in your
Yeah,
grooming.
exactly. And like yeah,
Yeah.
it's just wow.
Well, dude, I'm sure we
Oh,
could talk
dude,
forever.
we could go.
We've already blown well past my normal
Hey,
20-minute
man.
mark, and that's okay. This is going to be a special extra long
Hey, man, I'm
episode
good with
on
it. I love
just
talking
heat treating and
manufacturing.
partnership,
Man, it's
dude. Me too, man. So, oh,
oh, sorry, my bad.
it's all good. So as we're
Sure.
tying up,
Mhm.
Danny, and you're a young man
Yeah.
yourself, I would love to know if this clip reaches a young person that's looking at their career
Mhm.
path, or someone that is looking for a new career
Mhm.
path, what would you encourage them to do?
Right. Okay, so, like, first thing I'll say, and it's gonna sound cliche as all heck, age is just a number.
Yeah.
You could be 18, you could be 50. If you wanna get into manufacturing, you can do it, man, and you could find what you love. And but the hard part is when you start, it's not gonna be glorious, man. It's not gonna be glorious, and I don't wanna I'm not gonna sell you on something. When you start off in manufacturing, you're gonna be doing the hard stuff, and but I'll tell you what, man, that hard stuff, A, will give you confidence to know what you're talking about, and then also give confidence to lead other people through that same experience. Um, I think as a young person, even like what you're doing on a regular basis, the exposure to manufacturing. When I grew up, we didn't have that, man. Like like most of us, a lot of my friends never set foot in a manufacturing facility. But the thing I love about manufacturing is you could outwork anyone, and you could get very far doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny. Thanks for being a
Hey,
guest
man,
today
thank you
on
so
Machine
much
Shop
for
Tech
having me. I
Talk.
really appreciate it. I think we could talk for
Yeah.
hours on and
Oh,
hours deep.
dude. Wait. What I would like to do in the future, for anyone listening, if you like this idea, drop it in the comments or somewhere to get it back to me and Danny. But I would love to do like a more specific,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk induction
Oh, yeah.
hardening. Let's talk
Mhm.
case hardening
Absolutely,
depths.
man.
Let's talk, like, I would love, if there's something out there that you want to know about heat treating, Danny and I will
Yeah,
find a way to get you some
100%.
information on this,
And
because I think that would be
mhm.
really, really
Yeah.
cool. I would love to learn more. I love learning, and heat treat, I know nothing.
Yeah, man.
So I know I send it somewhere and they do what I
Yeah, yeah.
want.
Mhm.
And when they don't do what I want, my testing
Yep.
reveals that, and then we have a
Right?
conversation.
No, man, and
But
there's so many conversations to be had that I think could be, like, really helpful to people,
yeah.
right? Like, I think I get asked on every job how much they should be leaving on for a part.
Yeah.
Important thing, and I think we could get into
Oh yeah,
something
dude.
like that too.
We Oh, 100%. I'm excited. Okay. So drop your comments. Let me know if that's of value to the people
Oh,
if they're
yeah.
listening, or send me a DM. Send Danny a
Yeah.
DM. Get in
Yeah,
communication.
man,
Let us know.
I'm happy to point
Um,
if I can't help you, I'll point you in the right direction, put it that way.
yeah. Sounds good to me, man. So if you made it this far in the episode, you clearly were digging. This is an extra long
Yeah.
episode. If you made it this far, drop a like. Consider following along. Every week, I bring conversations with leaders from around the world in the world of manufacturing that know their stuff, that are invested in being the best they can be in the world of manufacturing. So if you like that kind of stuff, click like, click subscribe, drop a comment. Let me know that you're here for the ride too. And to all my machine shop friends out there, keep your spindles turning and earning.